was brought to you by the People's National Party.
Not one new high school built in 9 years. Children learning in church halls. Desks falling apart. Termite damaged roofs. Is that choosing Jamaica? The PNP will invest in education again because we choose you.
For the late start, and we can assure you
300% pay raise for MPs.
The truth is, you get the quality of governance that you elect, and every government is afraid to touch it because if you touch it, people say you don't deserve it. Why we should pay you more and the country not running well? The country not running well because of that very reason.
Public work has been waiting years for theirs.
I mean, we've done our homework, so I don't know that these salaries
you don't want me to share with the public.
Put parliamentarians and ministers in Jamaica higher than any other country in the Caribbean
you're trying
region.
To stop me from sharing.
No, I'm not.
They say choose Jamaica, but it's clear they've been choosing themselves for nearly a decade. The PNP believes in a fair deal for our public sector workers. We choose you.
Jamaica's public health system is broken. Every week we hear the horror stories. Long waiting times, no beds, basic equipment not working. Hospitals and clinics are in crisis. While this government cuts ribbons, Jamaicans are being left to suffer in overcrowded, under-resourced facilities like this one. The next PNP government will change this. We're going to shift focus. We want to prioritize actual care for people when they're sick, not these mega projects with huge cost overruns and that can't finish years after they start. Refurbishing every operating theatre, creating urgent care centres island-wide so people stop waiting days for help on benches or floors. We're going to launch national screening programs to target the biggest killers of our people: cancer, hypertension, which is pressure, diabetes, which is sugar. We want to catch them early so that people's lives can be saved. We will make the investments to ensure that every parish hospital has the equipment it needs to deliver the services required by the people. And stop the outsourcing racket that leaves patients with nothing but bills and delays. And we will support our healthcare workers, not just with words, but with housing, with training opportunities, and with respect. This is not about PR, it's about saving actual people's lives. Next PNP government will deliver proper, decent health care for the people of Jamaica. Time come. Jamaica is a beautiful Caribbean island, and beaches are part of who we are. It's not just about recreation, it's a part of our culture, it's about community, and it's about the livelihood of our people. But we have a problem. Our Jamaican people don't have access to most of our beaches. Fisher folk are losing their livelihoods. Families are being priced out of access to beaches. The next PNP administration are going to fix this. We'll use legislation if necessary to secure beach access rights for our people. We'll work closely with the tourism interests and investors to secure a harmonious solution that's a win-win for everyone. But the principle is that the interests of the people must always come first. Our beaches are part of our natural ecological heritage. All our Jamaican people must be able to enjoy our beaches. And the next PNP administration will make sure that this is so.
Comrades, know this, feel a victory. Time go, people, know this, feel a victory. Time go. Chip, chip, chip. as much. We know why you a drive little big scam bus. Them 28 book there where you shuffle up. Just understand, say everybody boy you fed up. Call the election now. Call it. Bro God, we've had enough. Call the election now. Call it. You time up. Bro get up. Bro get up. Time come. Before you work, you're busy hustle instead. While the hospitals not no bed, you take with for fools and I tell pure lies, bro. We know you compromise. Call the election now. Bro, God, we've had enough. Call the election now. You time up. Trust, time for justice. Your system corrupt. 9 years at this, we cup full up. Call the election now. Bro, God, we've had enough. Call the election now. You time up. Bro, get up. Bro, get up. Time come. Time come. Call it. Bro, God, we've had enough. You time up, bro get up, bro get up. Time come, time come.
We want it now, we want it now. We're tired, we're tired, we're tired. We're tired of them now with them false promise. Heavenly Father God, we want you. We need your divine intervention. We need it now.
Crime and safety. Your future depends on the right measures for crime being put in place. And I think you're mature and smart enough to realize it's not just about police and soldiers patrolling the streets. It has to start with healing ourselves and our communities and giving our at-risk youth a second chance to become productive citizens. Many of you will know a young person that the education system failed, who, if he or she had that second chance through mentorship, training, remedial education, and job placement, could become a positive contributor to our society instead of chopping and pushing. Domestic violence is higher than ever. Violent crime is fed by a general lack of moral norms, discipline, and behavioral standards in this society. We must address this. Time comes to establish legislation with effective mechanisms and remedies to protect survivors. Time comes to implement support centers in every parish to provide safe havens for the survivors of domestic violence and sexual assaults. Your vote matters.
Jamaican people want better.
Education. Education is the best antidote to poverty, passing from this generation to the next. Your vote can help to make tertiary education more accessible to everyone. Your vote can help eliminate the requirement of a guarantor for students to access a student loan. It can help to cap student loan payments at a manageable percentage of your actual income so that the state, not you, the student, bears the risks of low pay or unemployment. And if you lose your job and you're unemployed, we will suspend loan payments and tack them to the
members of the Shadow Cabinet, senators, His Worship the Mayor, Councillor Andrew Swaby, councillors, MP candidates, presenters, members of the party's executive, beloved members of the audience, citizen groups, guests, online viewers, good evening. Now, because this is going to be a responsive session, I'm tasked with ensuring that you are revved up for your segment. So once again, good evening. Okay, that sounds better. So now I have the opportunity to formally call this session of the People's Forum 2025 to order under the banner of the People's National Party. And with deep respect for the people we serve, we gather this evening, not just for another meeting, but for a movement of Jamaicans ready to fuel transformation and implement real change. This forum is a space for dialogue and direction, a conversation with the people, by the people, and for the people. So as we begin, round of applause. So as we begin tonight's proceedings under the powerful theme, People Time Come, and in the bold spirit of championing change, I invite every one of us to participate fully, listen deeply, and engage openly. So, on that note, we open up this evening proceedings with prayer. So, no, let us be upstanding for the playing of the national anthem of Jamaica. A prayer too, but one before the actual prayer. So, continuing that same vein of prayer, I now invite Councillor Vivienne Brown-Bond to lead us in a word of prayer.
It's the name of the Lord. Bow your heads. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Father, we bless your name. We honor you. We worship you. We bow down before you. Angels bow before you. Heaven and earth adore you. What a mighty God you are. Father, this evening, Almighty God, we invoke your presence right now, Lord. Because, Lord, nothing we do without you. In you we live, move, and have our very being. And as we enter this meeting, Almighty God, we pray, Almighty God, you will bless each and every one of us. Oh God, we ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. I pray this evening, Almighty God, that you will bless our next Prime Minister in waiting, Comrade Mark Jefferson Golden, without a shadow of doubt. Almighty God, we know, Almighty God, that you will lead us in the right path. I pray, Almighty God, you'll bless the Gensec. Oh God, I pray that you'll cover our mayor with a special blood from the very crown of his head to the very sole of his feet. Oh God, I pray that we'll touch every MPs, every candidate in waiting, councillors. Lord, if I forget anyone because of human nature, and human tends to forget, I pray that you'll cover each and every one of us here today. Cover us one more time under your blood. If it's not a time that Jamaica land need you, is now. So, Father God, we ask you, ride in, Emmanuel. Ride in. We come against every plan of your old adversary. We bind down every principalities and power. Oh God, we shake the unshakable. We move the unmovable. We stop the unstoppable because you are God. God, I pray that you will continue to bless us as we tell you thanks. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Well, I'm happy that the amen was stronger than the good evening, but I will take it. So once again, I'm Councillor Wayne Strawn Nelson. I also serve as the Junior Shadow Minister on Local Government. It is a privilege to open this evening's People's Forum 2025. It's the third stage, as I had mentioned before, and let me just double check that you're paying attention. Under the theme? So I'm just going to pretend that I didn't hear that. Under the theme? Okay. So this forum, it's not just an event, it's a commitment to ensure that national planning and public policy are informed by the realities, the ideas, and aspirations of the people they are designed to serve. We are especially honored this evening by the presence of the President of the People's National Party, the Honorable Mr. Mark Golding. His leadership continues to emphasize inclusion, equity, and governance that is accountable to Jamaican people. We are also joined by a distinguished panel of presenters, each of whom plays a vital role in shaping Jamaica's national policy agenda for when we do form the next government. So, to my left, we have MP Philip Paulwell, Shadow Minister, Energy and Climate. He promises an electrifying presentation about energy and climate, no pun intended. We already introduced our party leader and president. So to his left, we have Dr. Deborah Hickling-Gordon, Shadow Minister on Culture and Creative Enterprise, and she's going to be speaking to us today on the 5 Gs of the Cultural Economic Strategy. And he needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him nonetheless, is Dr. Andre Horton, Shadow Minister on Science, Technology, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. So each speaker brings a wealth of knowledge, but more importantly, they're here to listen. Because this forum is not only about what's coming next, it's about what matters most to you. So, as a councillor and as Junior Shadow Minister on Local Government, I know that change happens closest to home. Policy must connect with people's daily lives. And that's what we're about today. That's why the People's Session, the session in which you ask your questions after you have listened to these presentations, is at the heart of tonight's agenda. It's the item that actually has the most time. It's your space to ask questions, offer ideas, and help shape the direction of our communities and our country. So I encourage you to take part fully, because when we speak together, plan together, and act together, People Time Come becomes not just a theme, but it becomes a turning point. Thank you for your presence again, your insight, and your belief that democracy works best when the people lead. So I encourage you to participate and enjoy the evening. So, on that note, you can applaud if you want. So please join me in receiving the chairman for Region 3 and deputy spokesperson on health and wellness. He needs no introduction either, but if you want to guess, you can just go ahead. He's Councillor Dennis Gordon, parliamentary candidate for East Central St. Andrew.
Good afternoon. She's from the great constituency of East Central. we produce them like that. My task is really to welcome you to the forum. It's the People's Forum, which is your forum. And this evening we'll have robust discussion on various areas as how we intend to govern when next we form government. I especially want to say to the Prime Minister and waiting that next time we want a bigger venue for persons. So again, I don't want to say comrade to offend anyone because it's a public forum. But please forgive me to say comrades, welcome. Welcome, welcome. And I urge you to participate. I urge you to listen so you can have a greater appreciation for what we intend to do when next we form government. God bless you. It's always about love.
Thank you so very much. Now we will be heading right into the presentations. I think it's fitting that the first person is the first person because we anticipate that when we do our next lineup, the person who I'm introducing will be first. And so please welcome the leader of the party and the opposition, Honorable Mark Golding.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waynette, Strawn Nelson. I know the Strawn, I wasn't so familiar with the Nelson. She's doing so well, though, as our Master of Ceremonies. Yeah, man. Definitely taking it to another level. My colleagues on the platform, ladies and gentlemen, comrades all, it's indeed a pleasure for us to host our fourth in this series of town halls in which we manifest our commitment to the principle of participatory democracy. We value the input, the dialogue, consultation that a forum like this provides for people who are interested in matters of development and matters affecting our beloved island of Jamaica. We are coming together at a time when there are reasons to think that our democracy is under threat. We see manifestations of the arrogance of power concentrated in those who hold it for its own sake. Remarks like, there's no need for an opposition, coming out of the head of government of the country. The idea that they will never surrender Jamaica to the PNP. A repeated comment, actually, by a senior member of the government, a cabinet minister. And then the institutional attacks that are undermining the fabric, the architecture of accountability that has been constructed since independence and was strengthened under the last People's National Party administration when we developed the Integrity Commission legislation and brought it to Parliament. And we see where there have been efforts over the last 2 years to dismantle it or neuter it, undermine its efficacy and its powers. And in the context of the incomplete investigation of the Prime Minister's own personal financial affairs and the whole question of the potential offense of illicit enrichment, where we have seen the appointment of somebody not qualified and somebody who has clearly manifested bias in favor of the Prime Minister in the very matter which the FID, which he has been appointed now to head, has to investigate, is tasked with investigating. And these are just the latest manifestations of a trend which included things like requiring senators to sign undated letters of resignation in order to have the sword of Damocles over their heads in the event that they didn't choose to follow a particular position that the Prime Minister wanted them to take, where we have seen the appointment of a Chief Justice being put on probation by the head of the executive branch of government, the rushed passage of the NIDS legislation, despite major misgivings having been articulated by the opposition as to its compatibility with the rights of privacy and other rights under the Constitution, only to be forced to wheel and come again when we successfully took that matter to court, and the court threw out the entire legislation as being unconstitutional. And then, of course, the serial use of repeated states of emergency in an unprecedented fashion over a period of 6 or 7 years, with over 25 states of emergency declared during that period, again ruled by the Constitutional Court to have been an unconstitutional use of that power and a violation of the Constitution. So what is on the ballot in this upcoming election includes the very democracy, the very freedoms, the very constitutional order in 2019, and which the government has refused. In 2019, and which the government has refused to implement. We will be doing that. We will be pursuing the impeachment legislation, which was tabled as a private member's bill by yours truly. I didn't develop it. It originated from Bruce Golding when he was Prime Minister, but they never pursued it. And it was after that heinous incident of a member of parliament caught on video with a stool beating up his woman in a car park, his lady in a car park, that I saw the need to bring some mechanism of accountability for that kind of behavior that would bring the office of a parliamentarian into disrepute. And I dusted off Bruce Golding's bill, and I made some minor but important modifications, small I should say, but important modifications, and tabled it. And this government, despite it having been a commitment of the Jamaica Labour Party, a manifesto commitment in 2016, they have resolutely blocked it from moving forward. So we see the environment we're in. We see the threats to the democracy that the country is facing. And I use this opportunity again to call on all well-thinking Jamaicans, in particular those who may not be particularly interested in the politics of the country, may not find themselves allied to any political party, may indeed not have ever even voted or haven't voted in a long time. This is your time to come and defend our way of life. This is your time to come and defend our democratic institutions and the freedoms that none of us should take for granted, which are now under threat. I wanted to just touch on a few of our policy and programmatic commitments that we will be pursuing when we form government, which by all accounts will be soon rather than later. Yeah. We have gone through a decade in which, despite a boom in construction fueled by various economic factors, including the reduction of transfer taxes and stamp duties, the cheaper cost of credit, and the liberalizing of the planning laws around development. We saw a boom in the construction of houses in uptown areas, houses which were selling at prices which ordinary Jamaicans on salaries cannot afford. But there has been almost nothing done to construct affordable homes for the many thousands of Jamaicans who need access to affordable housing. And right now, for many young Jamaicans and many Jamaicans who are in salaried positions, but who find themselves part of the working poor or struggling middle class, find themselves excluded from the possibility of owning a home. the People's National Party has always been committed to providing housing solutions for those who would otherwise not have the opportunity to own their own homes. And if you check our record, it's a strong one, from Harbour View to Mona Heights to Hope Pastures to many other schemes, Greater Portmore and many of the other Portmore communities, and of course Operation Pride, providing a mechanism for the regularization and the bringing of dignity to informal settlements, providing them with infrastructure, organizing them into community organizations, and putting in the titling mechanisms. Unfortunately, although some 50,000 titles were issued, there are several of those schemes which have not been completed, and this government has shown no inclination to complete them. And we are committed to completing them. We are committed to ensuring that they get their titles and the infrastructure to the extent that it's incomplete. And indeed, we are committed to rolling out solutions for informal settlements to bring them into the ownership category in the country so that they can pass on wealth from one generation to the next and move themselves out of poverty into more dignified living conditions. We're also committed to building 50,000 affordable housing units in the first 5 years of the next PNP government. And we'll be... And in order to achieve this great challenge, we will be reverting the purpose of the National Housing Trust to that for which it was created in the 1970s by the illustrious former Prime Minister Michael Joshua Manley, where it becomes an important instrument of social engineering in the country to provide affordable homes to Jamaicans who would otherwise not have the opportunity to own their own homes. For some 12 to 13 years now, $11.4 billion has been taken out of the National Housing Trust each year to help fund the budget. It was originally implemented in order to achieve the targets under a very onerous and critical IMF program, but that was supposed to only last for 4 years. And the government of the day, of which I was part, was criticized heavily by the then opposition for doing this. They even took the matter to court through an affiliate and lost the case. Having come to office in 2016, they proceeded to bring legislation, not once but twice, to extend this for a further period of time, and it is still going on now. And of course, the impact on the Housing Trust has been significant. We see where the Housing Trust now has to outsource the funding of its loans, other than loans at the very lowest category. It has to outsource its loans to the private lending market and provide a subsidy to the private market for interest rates so that borrowers can get the rates that the NHT publishes. This, of course, is really further denuding the National Housing Trust of its resources, and this has to stop, and we're committed to stopping that so that the NHT can fulfill the mandate for which it was established. And we want to recapitalize the National Housing Trust. Having had all these resources taken from it, we want to recapitalize it with public lands that are suitable for housing, not agricultural lands. And then those lands can be developed, and we plan to provide purchasers with value, with equity in the purchase of houses built on those lands, because we will not include the land value in the price of the house. So the first-time buyers will get the benefit of that land value without paying for it. We are also considering a number of very, I think, attractive proposals to help people become owners in the country. So we have our deposit program for first-time buyers who are members who have contributed to the National Housing Trust for at least 2 years, and up to age 35, that's where we have it at the moment. We may adjust it upwards, but that's where it is at the moment, where they will be able to access $500,000 as grant funding, funding that they will not have to repay, out of a $1 billion fund that we will replenish annually, to provide them with the funding to help them to pay the deposit, the down payment on their first home. And this is because we are aware that the finding of the money to pay the deposit is one of the burdens that, one of the hurdles that first-time buyers struggle to overcome. And we have decided to provide this mechanism to help them. We also have the rent-to-own scheme, which would allow persons who may not have a pay slip and are therefore unable to prove their income and qualify for a mortgage to go into possession as a tenant of these houses. And if they are making their monthly payments, which will be fixed at the level that a mortgage payment would be, after a relatively short period of time, we're thinking of 6 months, we will treat them as having established proof of income sufficient to be eligible to draw down on a mortgage and move from being a tenant to being an owner of the home. And this will benefit all sorts of persons who are informally employed, self-employed, or employed in firms that are not well established and don't have the administrative arrangements to generate a pay slip for them. So these are some of the things that we want to do. We want to have a program called the Porsche program, which is really looking at inner city communities and ensuring that communities, not just in the inner cities, but across the island, which have conditions which are not in keeping with modern dignified living, we're going to look at improving them. Things like removing zinc fences, putting in adequate street lighting, proper sidewalks, especially for persons with disabilities, and so on, in honor of our much loved former Prime Minister and party leader, Portia Lucretia Simpson Miller. In the area of healthcare, there is a crisis in the country. The Minister of Health is very skillful at public relations, but when you look at the actual conditions that our people face when they have to seek medical care in the public health system, the situation is quite deplorable. There are the long waiting times to be admitted to a bed for persons who are sick and need to be given a bed, where they have to be sitting in a corridor on a bench or in a chair for long periods of time. It's untenable. And then the machinery and equipment at the public hospitals is often not working because it's not been properly maintained. And we have operating theaters which are closed for things like mold, or because, you know, air conditioning units are not working or elevators are not working. All of the basics that are required to be looked at after and attended to, so that the ordinary Jamaican people who rely on the public health system have access to decent health care in conditions consistent with their integrity as Jamaican citizens. We intend to restore those and make those things back where they should be. We want to have a system of urgent care centers to ease the accident and emergency overcrowding in the major public hospitals, and have an island-wide system of urgent care centers where cases of trauma, injury, or stroke can get immediate attention to stabilize the patient, and then the patient can be moved to a proper hospital environment when their life is no longer in danger. And this will save lives. We want to roll out a national screening program for the main killers in our society: diabetes, which is sugar, hypertension, which is pressure, and of course cancer of a variety of types. We have a situation in Jamaica today where many people are walking around who don't know that they're diabetic, don't know that they have a problem with hypertension or pressure, or that they have cancer, which if treated early, there would be a very good chance of complete recovery, and also much lower costs of dealing with their illness. But because there's no proper screening system, it's often caught late when it's type 4 and it's metastasized into other parts of the body, and it's a struggle. And very expensive struggle as well for those people. So we want to have a national screening program to catch those situations early so they can be nipped in the bud and our people can be as healthy as possible. As it said here, healthcare is not a photo op. It's a promise and we will deliver. Yeah. I want to say a few words about the education system in the country, which is perhaps the deepest crisis we face. We know the data, the 18% of secondary school age students who end up with 5 subjects, including English and maths, meaning that 82% do not achieve even that basic standard. And we've seen recent reports of a high school in Kingston. I won't even call its name because it is not unique. It is one of many high schools across the country with high levels of illiteracy in the school, 60, 70% illiteracy. We have to deal with this situation. And we're looking, in doing so, we have to focus on early childhood development and primary school education. And raise standards. We have to raise standards in those schools where the standards are lagging. And we have to look at the training of our teachers and what it takes to ensure that that happens. And we have to look at the causes of some of this low performance, including absenteeism. And absenteeism is often driven by poverty, by parents or single parents being unable to afford lunch money, or in the case of rural Jamaica in particular, the cost of transportation to and from school for children. Which is why we have developed the EASE program, which will ensure that any child that needs that help will get at least one hot, nutritious meal at school every day that they attend school. And that's at primary and secondary school. We're starting with that, but we intend to also offer breakfast as well as resources become available and the economy improves. And in terms of rural transportation for schoolers, we have the RIDE program where we're starting with a subsidy to subsidize transportation costs for students for up to 20,000 households initially, and we intend to move that number up dramatically as the economy allows us to pay for it. We also want to tackle intergenerational poverty by making it easier for students from lower-income families to attend college or university. One aspect of that is reforming the Student Loan Bureau so that some of the fear that people have in borrowing money to invest in their education can be eliminated. We do not think that the risk of poor economic conditions and a poor job market should be borne by our students. The state must bear that risk because it's our responsibility for delivering a strong economy. So if we intend to change the loan terms for student loan borrowers to cap their monthly payment at an affordable percentage of their actual income. And to the extent that they go through a period where they're not working and are unable to pay, they will have their payment obligations will be suspended without any penalties attached and tacked to the back end of their loan so that their credit is not damaged and they can rest assured that once they're back on their feet and resume paying, they will be okay. We also intend to have remove taxes from digital devices for students and teachers, whether it be tablets or laptops, because we do not see why the government should be charging tax on these fundamental tools for learning in the country. And then we have the First in Family program. And the First in Family program is designed to tackle intergenerational poverty by saying that if you are the first person from your family to have qualified and seeking to attend university or college, any tertiary institution, the PNP government will give you a full scholarship so that you can attend and complete your tertiary education. And our idea there is that that student coming from that family will help to raise the standards, the conditions, the prospects of their loved ones and their family, and reduce the risk of poverty transcending from one generation to the next. Education is the antidote to poverty. And we want to encourage our teachers to stay in the Jamaican classrooms. And yes, salaries are an important component of that. And we intend to tackle that as best we can given the fiscal realities. But there are other things that we want to do to show our respect and honor our teachers. We want to, for example, have special arrangements where they are given priority when it comes to housing developed by any public sector agency such as the NHT. We want to also provide them with free internet access by having a bulk arrangement for teachers that we will negotiate with an internet service provider. And we want to give them attractive motor vehicle concessions, which increase in value the longer they stay in the system as teachers, and to reduce their student loan debt the longer they stay in the system as teachers by reducing their principal balance for each year of service. And these are some of our package of measures that we have come up with to make staying in the teaching profession more attractive. So, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, our democracy must breathe. Our young people must believe. Our families must be able to live, work, and dream in Jamaica again. We are not here to beg for power. We are here to restore the balance, to put people before politics, and to say Jamaica deserves better. We are here to rescue Jamaica. Time come.
I sat there taking notes, and I think it is imperative that I caucus this room to see if what resonated with me resonated with you. So I have a simple instruction. So I'm going to tell you what resonated with me, and you can respond with championing change if it resonated with you. Cool? So our leader just presented on housing solutions. 50,000 affordable housing units. Your response is championing change. We spoke about recapitalizing the NHT, and 1 second, you're early. And reverting the NHT back to its original mandate. The People's National Party is? He spoke about the rent-to-own program for the informally employed and otherwise unable to do so. The People's National Party. He spoke about health and education. The People's National Party. So you have just heard a powerful reminder that what's at stake here is bigger than any one person or party. Because what's on the ballot is the future of Jamaica. So please give a round of applause to our leader of the opposition and party president. So I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Andre Horton, our next presenter, who told me that he'll be speaking on technology and its role in macroeconomic development. Now, what I've always admired about Dr. Horton, because he was at UU and I was as a lecturer, is his ability to break down these big, intimidating terms so that regular people like me, you and I, can understand. And so please make welcome Dr. Andre Horton, Shadow Minister, Science, Technology, Innovation and Entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much, Wayne, for that introduction. Comrades on the platform, comrade leader, my other colleagues, PNP at heart, welcome. Before I get into technology, I just want you to know that we won the court case where my posters are concerned. And they are now going back up. So we're looking good. The People's National Party, we have some really good lawyers. And we we know the law, and we don't intend to be bullied by small-minded people. We intend to stand our ground, and we intend to stand up for Jamaica, and we intend to rescue Jamaica from these trivial thinking people. Comrades, we are in grave danger as a nation. And I say so because when you look at how our economy has been managed, especially over the last 9-10 years, you recognize that there has not been a focus on doing what is necessary to improve the lives of the average Jamaican. We have seen where our unemployment rate, as reported by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, is one of the lowest that we've seen in many decades. It's about 4-point-something%. As economists, when we compare this unemployment rate to the national and the natural rate of unemployment for Jamaica, it is below that natural accelerating inflationary rate. And what do we mean? The unemployment rate is very low. However, if you scrutinize the numbers, you would realize that gross domestic product, which is GDP, the amount of people being employed on an annual basis, has increased, but the amount of goods that we're producing has remained the same. Now, in economics, we differentiate between what we call the intensive and the extensive margin. The extensive margin is when you hire more people and these people produce more goods. The intensive margin is when you use the existing amount of people to produce more goods. Now, Jamaica has exhausted what we call the extensive margin because, as you realize, most of the people are employed. And if most of the people are employed and we are still producing the same, it means that we cannot add more people to the production process through the extensive margin. Now, what this means is that we need the people who are currently working to produce more via the intensive margin. And this intensive margin is considered to be an increase in your productivity that increases your output. And the number one factor that contributes to the increase in the extensive margin is technology. When you look at the Asian tigers, you look at countries like China, you look at countries like South Korea, whose GDP back in 1950s was $158 per person. Today, South Korea's GDP per capita is over $34,000 per person. And how were they able to accomplish this? You look at Singapore, it tells a similar story. A country being dissected from their motherland, the Philippines, and they themselves had to make some really important choices to improve the lives of their people. Among those choices was one, they made a pledge to retain the youngest and the brightest. And not only to retain them, but to attract outsiders who are young and bright to contribute to the development of that country. Today, Singapore boasts one of the most technologically advanced economies in the world. And sometimes when we juxtapose the Jamaican scenario with Singapore, it sounds cliche. However, if you recognize that both of us have the same potential, and Jamaican people also has the ability that has been displayed by a lot of these Asian people. But guess what happens? Young people in Jamaica feel disenfranchised from the productive process. Many of us believe that our voices are not being heard in the right places, and even if our voices are heard in the right places, we are not being given the ability to contribute our expertise and skill in a willful manner towards the holistic advancement of the particular industries in which we work. And as a result, many of us find it easier to get employment abroad, take a flight, go to the United States. We get 4 times the amount of income. We get more appreciation for the effort that we put in. And our abilities are better compensated and accepted. But today, I stand here to say to you that this People's National Party government has recognized that. And I am a symbol of how the People's National Party has entrusted their real understanding and their understanding of who we are and an entrusted responsibility on our young people. You have myself, you have young Waynet here, you have young Senator Gabriel Morris, and a host of other young people that the PNP has given voice in this political movement and has empowered us with the ability to say that, yes, young people, there is a place for you in Jamaica. And these are things that we cannot overlook, right? Because we want to ensure that just as how Singapore were able to move their GDP per capita from less than $1,000 per person to over $100,000 per person, just as how other countries have been able to improve their GDP per capita, Jamaica too has the ability. Our current GDP per capita stands at about $7,000 per person per annum. In order for us to achieve our Vision 2030 goals, we need our GDP per capita to move from that 7,000 per person to at least 13,000 per person, which means that 7 plus 7, 14, right? So we need GDP per capita to practically double in less than 6 years. Now, my research has shown that this is going to be practically impossible, especially with the trajectory that Jamaica has been on over the last 10 years. However, we can pivot and we can evolve. In mathematics, what we say that when you have a particular economy moving in a particular trajectory, there are no points of discontinuity, but there are turning points and change in trajectory. And that is what the People's National Party means when we say that we want to rescue Jamaica. We want to increase the income of the average citizen, and we want to improve how much each person earns per capita per annum, and that is fundamental. Now, how are we going to achieve this? We're going to achieve this through science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We are already entrepreneurs, and we already have our innovative approach to every type of industry in this country. All that we need is support. First, we want to start with education, right? We want to start with innovation in education because the world is changing. We are now moving into the 4th and the 5th industrial revolution at the same time. And Jamaica missed the technology boat in the 1950s when these countries, the Singapore, the China, the Japan, the Taiwan, the South Korea were jumping on the technology boat. Jamaica jumped on the banana boat. And that has restricted our ability to generate real true income for our people. And we've said it many times, Singapore and Jamaica export a container of chips. The value of Singapore's container of chips, $100 million. It's the same container, right? The value of Singapore's container of chips, $100 million. The value of Jamaica's container of chips, a measly $50,000. The difference here is that Singapore exported a container of microchips while Jamaica exported a container of banana chips. And we have to, as a country, evolve from the banana chips mentality, something that we economists refer to as the plantation economy. It's just a different figure of speech. It's just a different way of articulating the same point. But we must now begin to appreciate the ambition of our people. And what we're seeing is that the government boasts so much about low unemployment is that they really don't get the picture of the ambition that dwells within each Jamaican and what is it that we want for ourselves, our communities, our towns and cities, and by far our country. So when they talk about minimum wage and they speak about increasing it from $15,000 per week to $16,000 per week. That's $100 per week. That's $400 per month. 12 4 is 48. Oh my God, if you're working minimum wage, it means that you're working about $5,000 per year. And it sounds a bit trivial, doesn't it? Hard working Jamaicans, well-thinking Jamaicans, Jamaicans with ambition to be their best selves are restricted to the idea of minimum wage. This PNP government has recognized that minimum wage cannot take us far, that exhausting the extensive margin and employing our people for twopence, a certain name? Twopence? Employing our people for twopence is a 1960s, 1860s, 1760s type of mentality. The world is now using the Internet of Things, using the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution to create what we call unicorns. Unicorns are companies that make over $1 billion in no time. When you look at Jamaica's GDP, our GDP is about $18 billion. We can round it off to 20. And it has been the government's ambition since they came into power in 2016 to achieve 5% growth. They dubbed it 5 in 4, and they wanted to achieve that 5% growth by 2020, right? It is now 2025, and we're still stuck at our usual 1% growth. It shows you gross mismanagement of the macroeconomy, right? And its lack of understanding, because when they came with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, we recognized the flaw and said that ministry, if it is to be articulated properly, should be the Ministry of Wealth Creation and Economic Development, because those two phrases are the phrases that are going to allow employment to take place and, most fundamentally, GDP growth to take place. So we're talking about technology. We need technology in education to help our students to learn. We need them now to move from that 18% who graduate with CXCs to at least 70% graduating with CXCs. We need proper AI systems to check and balance all the students coming from the communities who are going to school, to be registered at school, to make sure that they are in class learning, and also support services. Because as an educator myself, I can tell you that there is a silent revolution taking place in how people are educated. The days of dictating to people and chalk and cheese and so on, it's a thing of the past. These students are learning far faster than we are, and they have far greater resources, and it's up to us not to belittle technology and keep Jamaica behind, but it's up to us to embrace technology and learning and to give our young people the foundation that they need and to support them using artificial intelligence, because many teachers believe that artificial intelligence is going to compete with the student and also compete with them. No. Artificial intelligence is a tool that is going to allow the students to learn more information per unit of time and allowing them to become more productive. Because productivity and the intensive margin is what our aim should be geared towards extending. Technology in finance, very important. We're losing the ability of cash to move quickly. Gone are the days you want to transact business and you send the money through the bank transfer and the person is in the line waiting from 9 p.m. You send the money from 8 a.m. in the morning, and sometimes it goes through, sometimes it does not. We need financial solutions that are quick and right on spot. And the People's National Party recognize this, because we need fintech solutions. We can't say, okay, somebody wants to do something in Montego Bay. We go to the bank 9 a.m. in the morning. We send the money is not going to them until 3 p.m. that afternoon. That is slowing up the locomotion of the lifeblood of the economy, which is money. So financial technology is going to be very important if this country wants transactions to move faster and they want more output per unit of time. We love the agricultural industry. And technology in agriculture is number one on our list as well. Our leader spoke of it. He's going to prepare an agriculture fund. And this fund is going to be used to improve how technology is assisting the agricultural industry to grow. Jamaica agricultural industry depends on water, it depends on inputs, right? And it faces challenges, drought sometime, flood sometime. Prices are high in July, prices are high in December. Prices high in July because of drought, prices high in December because of flood rains that damage the crops. We need now these micro dams that Michael Manley spoke about. They are relevant in the 1970s and they are now relevant in 2025 with the infusion of smart technology that will track and monitor how water is distributed to these crops. That will allow us to grow more crops per unit of time, allow us to grow more crops per space, because technology has assisted many countries around the world to improve their agricultural output, and technology will allow Jamaica to improve its agricultural output. Fundamental. Technology in healthcare. One of my uncles died yesterday. He went to the Cornwall Regional Hospital. He was healthy on Sunday. All of us eat Sunday dinner, all a good time. Yesterday morning, him say him chest a tighten up, and him go Cornwall Regional Hospital, and by 8 p.m. him dead. This is very disheartening to me. I'm standing here in front of you with tears in the back of my eyes, because the healthcare system, and we cannot reiterate how this government is PRing their way through the healthcare system while innocent Jamaicans are dying left, right, and center. And well-thinking people like ourselves are standing on the sidelines and are saying that, oh, and that is a problem I have with nationwide news too. Because when Cliff Hughes talk about Christopher Tufton, oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread, oh, is it this, is it that? And then when we go on this program to talk, oh, it's because you're unpopular, where you come on the station, it's like they approach them who are not doing anything with a positive mind, and us who mean the country so much, they try to infuse negative when they try to speak to us, and I don't like it. I don't like it. And that is the problem that we've had with a lot of these people who are not fair in how they go about discussing the business of the country. And those are the things that have held Jamaica back. And it will continue to hold us back if we don't hold these people accountable with their biased utterances. Comrades, technology is important to every single industry. And what we have done thus far is to map out all the industries and how technology can help them to grow. We have to develop a spatial plan that looks at all the industries in every parish. And as I said to you before, if we have a GDP of $20 billion, all it takes for it to increase by 5% is to grow it by $1 billion per year. The same billion of which we speak. And we have the plans. If we have 14 parish, it means that we only need, say, less than 100 billion per parish in order for us to grow by that 5%. Westmoreland alone, when we improve and increase the ability for us to earn from nutraceutical products, from pharmaceutical products, and we create the industry, Westmoreland alone will give us the ability to grow by 5%, let alone the other parishes. Believe in the People's National Party plans, believe in our ability to articulate our plans and to infuse our plans, and believe in your own potential, because the People's National Party is here to provide the resources that would catapult you and your family, not just to get jobs, not just to become a part of the working poor, but for you to elevate from the lower class to the middle class, and from the middle class to the upper class. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Lots of blessings, and keep positive every time.
That was inspiring, wasn't it? So because you're so inspiring, I'm going to return your phone. So, thank you, Dr. Horton, for that inspiring, captivating, and simple but elevating, simple but not simplistic. Was I right when I told you he was able to break down those intimidating terms? And so thank you for breaking it down so clearly. Real economic growth happens at the intensive margin when we use technology to improve how we work and what we produce, and at the extensive margin when we bring more Jamaicans, especially our youth, into the economy. That's the kind of inclusive, tech-driven future the People's National Party is committed to building. So a round of applause to Dr. Andre Horton once more. So on the 5Gs of the cultural economy, we have Dr. Deborah Hickling-Gordon, Shadow Minister on Culture and Creative Industries, coming to us. Please make her feel welcomed. And we ask for her presentation at this time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Party leader, colleagues, all. As Andre said, those who are comrade-minded, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things that I have found out going around the country supporting a number of the candidates who are running for the People's National Party, as I'm not running myself, but I have put myself forward as the representative for the cultural and creative industries. That's my non-geographical constituency. I found that there are a lot of people who don't know what the cultural and creative industries actually are. So I'm going to use an example to see if I can get everyone in this room, particularly those of us from our movement, to understand exactly how the two concepts come together. Last week, a song dropped. It came out of a movement. It came out of a heart movement to rescue Jamaica. It came out of a fervor of a people who had said enough is enough. And this song is not a new song. It's not a contemporary song. It come from a long time. And those of us who sang it, or those who sang it, because I wasn't one of them, those who sang it before know what it means. And it have deep and resonant meaning. And it has deep and resonant meaning to people who are of the People's National Party. Because that's who they are. That's who we are. The ideas encapsulated in that song are about what we feel and we know and we think instinctively, right? But then we remix the song. And a new generation come and take up on being a blood and fire comrade. And it means something different to this new generation. It means commitment in our blood. It means passion as fire, right? That's all it means. And anybody who tries to change the meaning of that can come out and walk with us as we seek to rescue Jamaica. Now, that's what culture and creative industries is. It is what we feel, what we know, who we are, what we believe, what we do, how we behave, how we think, how we move. But it is also the production of that expression into a tangible form that we can listen to, that we can hear, that we can post, that we can send, that we can sell. Yes? And that's the creative economy side, because we're creating value out of what we feel. Now, that's culture and creative industries, and it's time we take it seriously. It's time we recognize that there's great value in that process of taking what we feel and understanding that what we feel is not something that we need to be ashamed of because it's not empirical and because we can't count it and because we can't hold it and we can't feel it because it's of us. Yeah? And that's why we have to invest in it. So that's culture and creative industries. I'm an audiovisual, everything. I have been a television producer for many years, so I think in pictures and I think in visuals. And so I want to share a little presentation with you. We're at a turning point, ladies and ladies and gentlemen, Jamaicans all. The next administration is going to determine how the cultural and creative sector urgently receives the required structured investment, formalization, and development to grow. In order to grow, these are the things it's going to require. And I usually say when I'm speaking to people, particularly people in civil society, that whatever government comes to power, and we know which it will be, there is going to have to be a level of investment in culture and creative industries. And we're going to have to grasp it and be clear about that. And so we have to understand what that means. What we did is we put together a team. The party leader named a spokesperson's team, and we put together a task force. And we looked at the culture and creative industries, who we are, and the creative expression that exists. And we decided that it was clear, 10 years ago, Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller came to understand that the thing was fragmented. There were a number of different voices that were speaking to the issues of culture and creative expression. And she put together what she called the National Cultural and Creative Industries Commission. And it brought all the ministries, there were 6 of them together, to deal with putting together policy. But other things she did, which was really revolutionary and important, is that she decided that we needed to get all of the professional organizations in culture, music, art, the filmmakers, the persons in media and so on, bring them together so that they would be a part of the decision making. And some of the ministers who were there at that time are in this room at the moment. And they all came together and started to put together a framework. We left this framework for this government in 2016. We also left a number of ideas, including the ideas coming out of the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment, like the special entertainment zones that Damian Crawford had authored. And there were other programs coming out of the Ministry of Youth and Culture that were very, very important in terms of determining who we were. And we wanted to bring them all together under a framework. The Prime Minister did that through the NCCIC. Now, 10 years later, that commission has never, ever met, not once. It was not recommissioned. And what that means is that there has been very little, and certainly very little formal participatory governance in terms of an institutional framework for cultural and creative practitioners to be a part of the decision making for their sector. And this is one of the first things that we are going to seek to do, to bring back the National Cultural and Creative Industries Commission to ensure that cultural and creative practitioners are a part of their own decision making. Now, this team that was put together, what we started to look at what Comrade Julian Robinson spoke to us about in terms of the sustainable growth strategy, education, energy, emerging industries, and efficiency. And most of us are represented here today. Emerging industries would include technology and the cultural and creative industries. So we took that on, and we took on the party leader's notion of what he meant when he said he wanted to see change, and we started to look at the cultural and creative industries. And one of the things that I found most of all is that the cultural and creative industries, there's a major issue in culture and creative industries. There are some people who believe in art for art's sake and culture on its own, and culture as something that is organic and is a part of us and should not be included in the issues of money and economy, which you see on the other side of the scale. As a government, as a modern government, one of the things that we have to do is find the appropriate balance. And so that's another one of the issues that we have found that we're going to be using to move the culture and creative industries forward. Because we can't neglect the notion that we're in a situation where we have to be growing our economy. And in growing our economy, we have to diversify our economy. And that simply means, as Andre said, we need to be finding new ways to be able to grow our economy, and the cultural and creative industries is one of those. Why? Because it is our competitive and comparative advantage. And what that means is we are good at it. We do it well. We spread our culture and creative industries to the world, and people know us for it. Whenever we go anywhere in the world, somebody is going to say to us, Bob Marley, or they're going to say to us, Usain Bolt. These are the people who become important as a part of the cultural and creative sector. So we have to find the balance. It is a $3 trillion industry. At the moment, based on some of the calculations that have been done, it's up to about over 9% of GDP, anywhere between 5 and 9. But the problem is we don't know, because the work has not been done in the last 10 years to determine what the real value of culture and creative industries is. So that's another thing that we have to do. That has to become another priority as we seek to find the balance. The other thing is we have to define what culture and creative industries are. 20 sectors, ladies and gentlemen. 20 subsectors of the cultural economy. Media, music, audiovisual, and each one of these subsectors has over 3 industries, which means we have at least 60 industries from the culture and creative industries. Now, if we look at 60 industries, building out 60 industries, we see an immediate path to growth. When we put together the elements of the emerging industries, we see that we are well over 20% of GDP. We have to formalize these figures. We have to ensure that the numbers are clear, but very little work has been done to put these figures together in the last 10 years. Why? There's been no policy. There's been no plan. There's been no strategy. There's been no structure, and this is why, as the party leader said in his presentation to Parliament, that cultural and creative industries, they continue to grow, but in spite of government intervention, because very little is done to coalesce the culture and creative industries. So there are a number of things that we have to do. These are some of the things that we need to do. We need to create a strong ethical base. We hear the songs on the radio. The other day, I was driving down the road and I stopped beside a bus. The bus black, tint up. And I can't even begin to tell you some of the music that was coming out of the bus. And we know that there are laws that should prevent that. But there also has to be an element from a cultural perspective to see how we can make some of those changes and influence some of the change that is required in terms of an ethical base in our cultural and creative industries. We need a national framework. We need to eliminate what we see now as arbitrary projects, projects that have no real end game. So you have a very important insurance scheme that we would have mooted as a part of our framework in 2015, but without a sustainability framework. Yeah, you see, there are career schemes with no throughput to where the children who go to the career fair and watch the career fair and have a great time, what do they do next? How do they now know how they are going to move forward in their careers? We need a facilitatory government role, which means we need the government to be able to facilitate and assist cultural and creative practitioners to move themselves forward, whether they are having round robins, or they are having a sound system, or they are a filmmaker, or they are a TikToker. That one has been getting a lot of attention lately. Whether they're making music or beats, or they're into art, or they're into some of the other technical areas, animation and so on. We need to be able to engage the private sector, to have it understand how important culture and creative industries, and we need to be moving towards social integration. So how are we going to do it? When we started our work, one of the things that we determined is that there are a lot of prescriptions, and have been for over a decade, as to how to grow the culture and creative industries. But as to what needs to happen, and we decided that we were going to take a look at how we were going to do it. And we decided that we're going to create a roadmap to culture, a roadmap to moving towards development of culture and creative industries. And we're starting with nurturing greatness. Every time we go around the country, we see all these people who have this phenomenal talent, and there's no throughput. There's no way for them to move their talent forward. It's not a clear path. So we want to be able to put in programs, and we have a series of them that's going to help individuals matriculate right through the system to be able to participate in culture and creative industries. And like I say, each one of these has a number of programs to achieve these particular goals. The second one is to ground cultural and creative industries in the communities. In the past decade, culture has been absolutely removed from the communities and has been centralized. So we want to see the JCDC back in the communities. We want to see the municipal councils having more street dances at the end for the special holidays. We want to see the float parades back in the communities. We want to see the community centers being used in ways that culture and creative industries and sport and social transformation programs and citizen security programs all come together to ensure that our communities come alive again. I recently moved to a rural community, and I am saddened. I'm really saddened by the ways in which our rural communities have lost their verve, have lost some of their energy, and it's really important and incumbent on us. As we move around the country too, I've been to a couple of constituencies where we recognize that each constituency has its own cultural flavor. And there is the means by which we can have creative or cultural districts. So when I went to Comrade Pat's constituency, we toured the entire area of where Bedward and got the full story of Bedward. But guess what? See the grass here on top of Bedward's grave? You can't get to the grave. And the same is true for most of the heritage sites around the country. It is heart-rending, heart-breaking to see some of it. Comrade Ethne, we went to Comrade Ethne, and it's a different flavor. Entrepreneurship right across the Henny Park. On one corner you have a museum, on another corner you have a bar, on another corner you have a place where it's really a dust bowl at the moment. But we sat and we spoke about it. Why we can't have a creative district in the Henny Park where you leave the museum and go to the bar and then there's a performance at the over where is now a dust bowl? Why can't we be using these spaces in order to create wealth and to create value for people within communities? So that's the second one, and that's the one I'm really most passionate about in terms of materializing. The third one is going for growth, putting in the structures. This is a technical one. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm not going to try to explain it here, but it's a very technical process of trying to onboard cultural and creative industries as a part of the economy. It's something that I've spoken a great deal with the party leader who understands this process, because this is what he does. He's a solutions man, and this is one of the areas. It's going to take a lot of research. It's going to take a lot of legislation, and this is where the $1 billion fund comes in, where we're going to be growing businesses, cultural and creative businesses, from little small businesses of all cultural and creative stripes, yes, from every sector. And we're going to be ensuring that they're getting technical assistance, we're going to be ensuring that they're getting loans and grants, and that they're going to be able to move forward, move their businesses forward. The fourth node is governance. Now, that's actually one of the biggest problems we have in cultural and creative industries. It's not the sexiest, but it is the most critical, because we have a problem with transparency, a big problem with transparency. We don't know a lot about what's happening within the administrative bodies, institutions that run culture and creative industries, and a lot of times those questions are asked and there is a blank wall. So, for example, I've asked about Vale Royal and its contents, and at this point I'm yet to hear what the situation is with that. And there are many other questions about transparency, inclusion. People who complain about being blacklisted can't get emails that are not being answered. People who feel that they can't go to the ministry because, although it is said there is an open door policy, that is only friend and company, and some people, right, that the inclusion issues at the ministry, there are real problems. And they're easily denied. I have an open door policy. Yeah, they're easily denied. But there are people who quietly will tell you the truth. And the last one is going global. And that is about creating an enabling environment that allows for trade, marketing, helping cultural and creative practitioners get what they need, the services they need, through the recommissioning of a body called Jamaica Creative. We're going to redesign it and rework it so that it provides investment services, so that investment readiness services, so that businesses can now start to bring they can start to bring their businesses to trade in local and overseas markets. It's also, I spoke to a comrade today, Ricky Chin, And we spoke about things like creating IP facilitation in that unit so that all of those artists who have had major problems in the past with their intellectual property and collecting royalties across the world, that we look at working with JIPO to see how we can assist some of them to repatriate some of those funds. But what I want to say as I wrap up is that one of the things that has been missing from the process of cultural and creative industries and administration has been a holistic examination, looking at the whole picture, understanding that technology can't work without creativity, because you can't have animation without the soundtrack. You can't have animation without the design. You can't have animation without the various technical elements, the various creative elements, the storyline. And everything we do here in cultural and creative industries is about telling a story in a different way. And we have stories galore in this country. We have more stories than we can ever imagine. I remember saying to my sister the other day that if we were to just take the stories and try and find different media through which to create those stories, just one story at a time, how much value we could create in this country. And that value is not only monetary value, because again, I end where I started. That value of the story translated to a product or a service, it tells us and allows us to share locally and in the diaspora who we are. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to leave you with the final film. If the
culture is who we are, our spirit, our story, our strength, and it's time we treat it that way. PNP introduces Project G, a 5G cultural economy strategy. It's the beating heart of the PNP's 4E Sustainable Growth Plan and emerging industry. We begin by nurturing greatness, building cultural confidence, protecting heritage, nurturing talent at every level, grounding, reviving the cultural soul and the economy of communities and towns island-wide, growth, structuring the cultural economy to unlock wealth through creative enterprises, backed by a preliminary $1 billion development fund. Good governance, bringing structure, fairness, participation, coordination, clarity, inclusion, and in particular transparency to cultural leadership. Global reach, expanding our influence through strategy, investment, infrastructure, technology, and trade. This is Jamaica's style. This is Jamaica's plan. This is Project G.
Our culture is our competitive and comparative advantage. A round of applause for our presenter, Shadow Minister Dr. Deborah Pickling-Gordon. Housekeeping, kind reminder that we are streaming live. You are in the palms and in the homes of hundreds of people. So please adjust yourselves to that reality so that we don't have any screenshots or screen grabs of things you wouldn't want to otherwise see on the internet, yes? Also, kind reminder to please have your phones on silent. And also, we welcome our online audience. And to the People's Forum. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and also let us know what's resonating with you so far. I saw some insightful comments, and I just want to, these usernames are very funny, but I just want to acknowledge Funny Bunny, Dennis Williams, and Lady J Love. Thank you for being so interactive. We now welcome our final presenter to bring what he terms an electrifying presentation to you. And he is, I don't think I need to, he's the energy boss himself. He's Philip Paulwell, Shadow Minister on Energy and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I greet the future Prime Minister of Jamaica, who, my colleague panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I believe you've gotten enough, more than enough reasons to vote for the PNP already this evening. Such absorbing, informative, dynamic presentation as from our party leader and from two persons who remind me when I was youthful, etc. So I am not going to, in any way, try to give a fulsome presentation at this stage, because the important aspect of this forum is also to hear from you. And so at the end of my presentation, you're going to see a QR code appearing on the screen. Just take a photograph of that. It is going to take you to my website, where you'll see the presentation among other presentations. Because we have not been here just opposing. We have been planning to return to government, and that's where we are now. Things are tough for the Jamaican people. Times are hard. Our cost of living has been a tremendous burden to our poor people. And you know, I'm a 6th term member of parliament, going for my 7th term. And my most challenging term has been this term. People used to come, yes, they need help to going back to school. We assist them with roofs because those get damaged. But it's the first term that I'm experiencing so many of my constituents come to me to say, MP, I'm hungry. I want some food. And these guys, they don't understand why people are going to vote them out, you know. Because people are suffering, people are hungry, and this hollow ring of prosperity, pun intended, aggravates people. You know, it is in the era of energy that we have seen the tremendous impact of cost of living. And it's twofold, because yes, as consumers of electric energy at home, we have seen from 2016, when the price of electricity was about 23 US cents per kilowatt hour, 2016. To today, it's 40 cents and climbing. And that affects everything else. So when you go to buy sugar, when you go to take a taxi, it affects all the goods and services that we produce. And it is also largely responsible for our lack of growth. So it's two things. You have the cost of living going up, driven largely by energy, and you have no growth taking place. So even those persons who are employed, their income is not improving because there is stagnation in our economy. And today we are presenting to you certain, I believe, clear strategy to address that. And I welcome this, even though I'd have preferred to have a debate with the Minister of Energy. So I'm using this opportunity to once again to call out Darrell. Come and debate me in front of our studio audience where people can ask questions and we can answer questions. We have a lot of work to do. And there are certain things operating in our favor. Firstly, we have the emerging JPSCO license that, in many respects, has prevented us from doing some of the things that we want to do. But unlike the cable and wireless license, which still would have been running because that license would have expired in 2038. And thank God we had a government that had a vision. And as I say that, I'm so happy to see Yvonne McCullough-Sobers, who was the first chairman of the e-learning company. And of course, they were twinned with Universal Service Fund. And I and the government, we were the proud parents of those two institutions that continue to serve the country. Very good to see Yvonne. But an important date is emerging when the government of Jamaica, by the 7th of July, must indicate to JPSCO what it is going to be doing with the license. And all I'm hearing is that consultations are taking place. This consultation, if I were a minister, would have taken place in 2023. And we've been in a position today to say to JPSCO, here is the plan. Here are the negotiating terms we are proposing. And just as we did with cable and wireless, to sit down and to make sure that the Jamaican people benefit in the long run. And what are some of the things we want to do? Firstly, when you go to pay your electricity bills today, 20% of that bill is not from electricity that you use, It is from electricity theft. And I really believe that in this day and age, electricity must be a right. And it must be afforded to those persons who can't afford it. And there are solutions to that. We have seen, and by the way, there are about 200 to 300,000 households that cannot afford electricity. I hope I'm saying that right, Paul Berg. We have seen, because we did it, when we established the first solar farm in Jamaica, in Wigton, in Content, in Clarendon, where you can generate electricity at a fraction of the cost. And today, with the improvement in the technology for solar panels, and the price has come down, with the improvement in the technology for inverters that convert the solar into direct energy, and very importantly, with the improvement in the technology for storage. That was a problem that we faced with renewables. That yes, the sun shines only in the daytime, the wind sometimes don't blow, but we could not capture and store that energy for when the sun is down or the wind is not blowing. We have seen in the last 5 years, the government hasn't seen it as yet, but we have seen the dramatic improvement in the technology for storage, batteries, so that today, if you have enough batteries, you can be supplying electricity for 24/7. And we're going to be utilizing solar to effect rapid changes in those communities that cannot afford electricity. And we're going to be establishing mini grids using solar, and we're going to be enabling our people who can't afford it, who have to be running and hiding when they see police coming, to pull down the wires, that will be a thing of the past. But very importantly, we want to empower you, every single Jamaican. And I'm going to tell you why it won't put JPSCO out of business. But we want to empower you to generate your own electricity. And that is what we call power for the people. Power for the people. And we are coming up with a creative scheme to assist you in funding. Not going to be entirely free. But the good thing about what we are planning to do is that we are going to enable you as well, apart from providing your own electricity, to generate sufficient so that you can sell additional electricity to the grid. So you're becoming a producer rather than just a consumer of electricity. We say power for the people. Power to the people. And then there are some other things that we have to do in the reforms that will have to occur. Right now, JPSCO has this right of first refusal, so that whenever you need additional capacity, they have a preferred right. We have to abolish that. You know I believe in competition. So it's going to be subject to full competition, and whoever comes with the best technology and the cheapest price will be those generation that will be procured and will be supplied to the grid. So that's one area. Secondly, we believe that our special economic zones have not done as well as was intended because of the high cost of electricity. We believe that as we move for growth, we have to empower these zones to generate their own electricity. And so there's going to be a special carve-out. Just as though each of you will be able to do your own generation, we're going to empower those people who operate in the special economic zone to generate their own electricity as well. There are so many other aspects of energy that we really ought to talk about. But I'm mindful of the time. So let me now shift a little to two important areas. The environment, and the environment is not a third cousin. It's going to be front and center to all that we do as a government. And of course, climate change. The environment, we have a tremendous responsibility. Recognizing that whatever we do to increase our capacity to grow could have a negative impact on the environment. But we're all about sustainable growth. And I know whenever a cabinet submission is placed before Mark Golding, he's going to be asking 2 or 3 critical questions. What impact will this have on our environment? And how are we going to mitigate that impact? He's also going to be asking Floyd, what impact will this have on our disabled community and the elderly? Right? But we're talking about the environment now. We have to ensure that our laws are enforced, because we do have elaborate laws, detailed laws that are not being observed. So recently, they went into my constituency and at Fort Rocky. And overnight, they dug up the mangrove without regard to the law and to the environment. That can't work any longer. That will not work any longer. We have to ensure that where people are allowed to mine, they mine there and leave the other areas so that they can be preserved for future generation. I'll say a word about climate change. Now, many people hear about climate change and they don't understand how it relates to you, your lives. Climate change is an existential threat to mankind. And it is as serious as that. And unlike the environment, where we have greater control and we have a tremendous responsibility, our contribution to climate change is minuscule. We don't generate enough industrial activity to affect the tremendous growth in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, or to the greenhouse gas effect that results in the earth warming at record levels. So we're experiencing more drought, more ferocious hurricanes, etc., etc. These are things that the first world countries ought to bear a greater burden and responsibility to deal with. And they're not. Unfortunately, we are hearing only one voice in our region who speak about this. Thank God we have the Prime Minister of Barbados. But that used to be Jamaica's role. That used to be Jamaica's position. And we need to see it in the very same way as Norman Manley and Michael saw apartheid. That you have to mobilize the world community. You have to articulate. And you have to go and fight and struggle for the industrialized countries to recognize that it can't be business as usual for them, but very importantly, that they need to put in place corrective measures for mitigation and so on. And I believe that they are being let off the hook. And they have been let off the hook by our government as well. And we need to be bold and fierce in saying to these industrialized countries, you have to take greater responsibility for what is imminent, what is going to destroy mankind in climate change. Such a pleasure to be here in front of you. I hope your energy is still high. Thank you very much.
The People's National Party is giving power to the people. Just a kind reminder, so fitting, there's a QR code on the screen. Please scan to read more from our Shadow Minister on Energy and Climate. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, we've heard powerful presentations tonight grounded in vision and data and rooted in the values we believe will move Jamaica forward. And so now it's your turn. We're going to be opening up the floor for the people session because your voice matters, your questions deserve answers, and this movement is built with you, not just for you. And so a few housekeeping rules which I believe I need to establish so that we can have free and fair question and answers. So keep it respectful, that's one. Once you identify yourself, we have a roving mic on my left and on my right, and we also should have a mic in the middle where you can, okay, no problem, where you can go to and ask your questions. We ask that you keep your questions to maximum 2. Please be direct with who you're directing your questions to. Please identify your name, well, identify yourselves, and the group that you're from. So whether you are from a civil group, whether you are just a citizen, whether you are from a party group, we'll also be taking questions online if we're able to. And so you can consider the floor open, and we have our first question on my right, your left.
First of all, I want to say hi to my former student, Mr. Philip Paulwell, Excelsior High School. Oh, yes. Good to see you, sir. I just want to make a comment. I am delighted at the colors that we've chosen for the People's National Party. I've been receiving videos almost every single morning, and you look so bright and beautiful, ready to take over. And I think that's very important. You have to be attractive because people, especially Jamaican people, they love nice things. They love to look pretty and look beautiful, and we do. I think we're the better looking party. In every way. And secondly, I want to commend this particular exercise because for me, for the first time, I'm hearing what the People's National Party will be doing when we get into power. And the last thing I'm going to say, did you notice that they had no scripts? Brilliant. And I think everybody who presented did so very well. Time come. Thank you very much.
Check. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, following your beautiful commendations, I would have loved to know your name. So I'm asking you kindly, once you raise your hand to ask a question, please tell us your name and where you're from. Well, I do know that she is MP Paulwell's former teacher. I'd like to know your name.
Actually, I'm the retired senior vice principal and acting principal of Excelsior High School, our alma mater. Yes. And my name is I'm one of the 7 Alison Pearts in Jamaica, because there's another Alison Peart who, when she was seconded by Mr. Omar Davis from Ernst & Young, they used my file photo. Yes, and she's slim and fair, and I'm plump and dark, so you know.
Thank you very much, Miss Alison Peart. We have a question on the left. Please identify yourself and ask your question and who it's being directed to.
John Pollock here. I wore this shirt, especially this evening, because of the POSHA's initiative. And I remember that the Operation Pride has given over 70,000 people access to land. Comrade Goley, the incoming Prime Minister, I am pleased that you have seen it fit to give Jamaicans who didn't get any land from the slave owners land. And that initiative with the POSHA thing, it's very intriguing. I really love it. And there are others who loved it also. But the question I want to ask, we have so much crown lands in the country. Is it the intention of the People's National Party to free up those crown lands to Jamaicans?
You want to do it one at a time, or you want to?
No, so we'll take them 2 at a time or 3 at a time, and then we can answer in bulk.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
The name is Al July. Comrade Leader, Mr. Connect, Miss Hicklin, and Mr. Harton, for great presentation. And I would love you to put your hands together. I am convinced that the voice of the people is greater than the voice of the government or the actions of the government. And because of that, I am proud to be a member of the People's National Party. Having listened to the Comrade Leader spoken policies and his intent to change the culture in this country, a culture of corruption by this government, a culture of cronyism by this government, a culture where we now witness in 2025, where our candidate has been run out of a business place because of what she wore and who she stood for. This is the platform and the ground that has been rolled for a dictatorship, 3rd term for the JLP government. And we say no to that. And Comrade Leader, I must say this to you directly. Since I'm in politics, going around the country, I must tell you this, that you have brought the People's National Party with one of the greatest unity of young people coming together. We call them the millennial. I have not seen this kind of millennial activity for the longest while in politics, only when Obama was running in the United States. And I want you to give the Comrade Leader another hand clap for me, please. Comrade Leader, there are so many low-hanging fruits. I'm making a comment, I'm going to ask a question, please. There are so many low-hanging fruits that the spokespersons in the party can speak on. But I must say this, I am not hearing the voices of many of them as I am seeing you and I am hearing you, and I think I need to hear from them more, because that is what the people are saying on the street. Stand with the Comrade Leader and speak up, because there are a lot of issues in this country to speak on that are negatively affecting the constituency that some of us represent. and we are not hearing those voices. Last but not the least, Comrade Leader, what are the plans, programs, and policies do you plan to take in regard to national security? I would love to hear if there's anything different from this which this government is doing, and what are your plans, Comrade Leader?
All right, thank you so much. We ask that you keep the questions very compact so that we can allow maximum participation. So question noted, we'll answer, and the final question before we take the answers from our panel.
Good afternoon, comrade. In particular, eminent Prime Minister Mark Gowley, Comrade Mark Gowley. Good evening, sir. I want to use myself to make a particular example of this land tenure issues that we speak about. I am from Eastern St. Andrew, Mona Common. I lived there 61 years. Now, I was taken to Mona Common when I was 2 years old, so I am there now 61 years. And yes, as you know, the Constitution provides something for me. Even though I try to help some of the people that live at Mona Common, how they check the ears that they live and die. Because some of them don't know that they can check their family ears with their ears. I'm not a lawyer, but I do a lot of research myself. So I know, so I want to find out, how will my party, the PNP, help to enhance my position now for me and facilitate the process for me to become a land holder with my documents. I'm living there 61 years now, and I think that will be quite fair. Thank you.
Could you please just remind us of your name?
My name is John Minor, Comrade John Minor from Mona Common.
All right, thank you. The comrade is noted. All right, so the first question was from Mr. Pollock as it relates to the intention of the party to free up Crown lands, and that question was directed to, I'm very sorry, Comrade Pollock. You could go ahead.
Well, I'll take that one. I should start by saying that Lothan Cousins MP is speaking in the sectoral debate next week, Tuesday, on the issue of land. And he made a presentation yesterday to the shadow cabinet, and some of what he will be speaking on is directly relevant to your question, Comrade Polak. I don't want to steal his thunder by speaking too much detail to it, but suffice to say that we believe that as an asset of the people, which is what Crown land is, although it shouldn't really be called Crown land, it's a people's land, we believe that it should be used to empower Jamaica and empower Jamaica's economic development. So, some of the lands that will be used to recapitalize the National Housing Trust and provide affordable housing will be Crown lands. But lands that are not suitable for agriculture, because we believe that agricultural lands should be preserved as much as possible for food security and for agriculture. And we are looking at some of the legal issues around the way in which Crown lands are categorized coming out of colonial days in terms of where persons have occupied lands for generations, how they can become owners. And that directly relates to John Minor's question as well. I don't want to be specific yet because, as I said, Mr. Cousins, Comrade Cousins, will be speaking to this next week, Tuesday, but we're looking at modernizing some of the rules around this. And indeed, the Operation Pride approach and the Porsche approach, which is a modern iteration of that, which will have a robust governance framework attached to it to ensure transparency and accountability for how funds are used and all of that. We'll be looking at communities like Mona Common. I'm very familiar with it. We used to champ who's in place as a youth regular, yeah, for various reasons, but I did at the time. Positive reasons. You know, I know the community quite well, and it is crying out for some of the solutions that you're speaking to. So persons who have long-standing tenure can become owners. And there needs to be some organization in the community as well, right opposite the hospital, so that it can become a community that works in harmony with the hospital, the university community right there, Papine, and so on. So that is my response to both you and Comrade Paula. What was the other question?
The second question from, I think I know I have to say Comrade July, is that the issue of not being able to hear from the spokespersons on party positions.
National security.
And also national security. It was two.
No, well, on the issue of hearing from spokespersons, we are trying different methodologies to get our message out. So this is one of 4 forums which exposes spokespersons to the media, social media, and the audience. We also have rallies. We've been going through our divisional conferences, and those are designed to expose spokespersons, and they're encouraged to talk on their subject matter as well. One of the challenges we have is, the media doesn't always give us the coverage that we think we ought to get. It's the nature of the media that the media environment in which we're living. So we have to just push every possible opportunity to get our voices out. But the spokespersons are encouraged to speak out. We issue releases every day, many releases every day on issues of importance on the day, so that our positions are heard. And we just need to continue. And as we expand our communications capacity in the party, which is something we've been working on and continue to work on, you will find that our message gets out further and more broadly than it has been. So that is what I have to say in relation to that. In relation to national security, our philosophy on it is a balanced approach. So we believe that law enforcement needs to be given the tools that they must have to be effective, and they must be supported in the work that they do. And we are pleased that we have seen, as a result of a switching strategy, which we were largely responsible for forcing on the government, we've seen that the police force is now focusing on intelligence-led policing and actual targeting persons who produce violence in the society, and building cases that can bring people to court and hold them accountable. We are also in favor of greater accountability in the force by encouraging body-worn cameras to be worn, because we have seen where there's a strong feeling out there that the use of force is not always proportionate to the risk, and the police need to protect themselves from those allegations by wearing body-worn cameras, so they can substantiate, if the needs be, that the circumstances justified what they did, and citizens can be protected from any tendency to overuse force. It's very important, and we encourage that. But we support the police and the great work they're doing, and we want to see it continue, because we want the rates of violent crime in the country to go down. Apart from that, there is a whole cause of crime, the crime prevention side of it, which is where this government has completely abandoned any strategy for dealing with that. When we were last in government, well, first of all, under Dr. Peter Phillips, when he was Minister of National Security, the Peace Management Initiative was developed, which was a community-based mechanism for intervening in conflicts early and resolving them by persons who are trained and have respect in the community, ensuring that what is a relatively minor thing, but where feelings are generated, can become a cause of a series of events that is a spiraling series of reprisals, which is one of the biggest sources of murder in the country. So we believe that the Peace Management Initiative, or something of that type, needs to be revived, and there's a role for it. We also started Unite for Change when Comrade Peter Bunty was Minister of National Security, and Patricia Duncan-Sutherland was very involved at that time in that program. It was discontinued, and the PMI has been defunded. What we now have is the government effectively outsourcing to the private sector any kind of major social intervention to try and reduce crime through prevention. And unfortunately, Project STAR, as wonderful as it is, it doesn't have the funding to be a national program. We need to get behind that type of program, make it a national program, so that we're dealing with some of the issues, anger management, training opportunities, mentoring of people, gender-based violence and interventions around that, and affording women opportunities to remove themselves from spaces where they're at risk to other places where they can be safe. There's a whole culture and ecosystem of activities that need to be focused on at the community level to make our people less aggressive, demonstrate more love and understanding in how we deal with each other, and more respect in how we manage conflict. It's a cultural shift that's required, and that's why I've stressed the need for ethics in how we govern ourselves, and I'm seeing ethics in the broadest sense. And I don't think that the political movement can necessarily lead this. I think it has to be led by the other persons who are not seen as partisan political actors, but it's very important that it be supported by the government, because it's all going to be part of our strategy to make Jamaica safe and secure again. Thank you.
All right, so if you do have a follow-up question, let's just allow some other persons to ask questions first, and we can come back to you once we have exhausted. 1 second. There is a question here. You can go ahead.
Good night, everyone. I'm Antoinette Hamilton, the president of the Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Alliance. Now, question to Mr. Golding. So the government would have allocated $2 billion to, well, first of all, let me commend you and your team for your commitment to community engagement. And we from the business community thought it was necessary to be here to ask a few questions.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, right. So the government would have allocated $2 billion to DBJ. Our understanding is that this is solely for loans. But our MSMEs, which are, well, they're startups, they're micro, they're small, most of them don't have the family support, and it's difficult to access loans. If you were to form the government, would you...
Please allow Ms. Hamilton to complete her question.
Government, would you be revisiting the allocation to consider incorporating grant funding for MSMEs so that those that have visions of becoming entrepreneurs can start, as opposed to being hindered right now because they don't have the necessary requirements to access a loan? Secondly, this morning, it was mentioned by Senator Morgan, I think, that the government is looking at another solidarity program. Now, my calculation of what was said is about $1 billion. So clearly, there is money in the coffers that can support our give back. Now, we are yet to see what the give back is for small businesses. And so, again, if you form government, will you be prioritizing giving back to small businesses as well? Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question on... Okay, you can go ahead. Please identify yourself and then ask your question, please. 1 second.
Sorry about that. A very good evening to you, comrades, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Comrade Errol D. Hastings, Chairman of the Egalitarian Group, Haverview Division. Question is for the Prime Minister Designate, Mark Jefferson Golden. Okay, I'd like to know what legal actions our party is pursuing as it relates to dislodging the damaged goods known as Dennis Chung. As far as I'm concerned, there is ample prima facie in law for an injunction to be sought and eventually is full removal. That's it.
The the third question for this set is, you can go ahead.
Pleasant afternoon, comrades. I'm Marlo Kingan from West Rural St. Andrew. An educator, a sport person. Let me declare that. The question will go to two of our comrades on the platform, Comrade Hicklin and also Comrade Harton. You spoke about the importance of cultural. A diving pool and a full-size Olympic pool was installed at that facility. And to date, it has never been used for what it was supposed to use for. We see various governments come in and we hear various plans. And I'm asking if there is not a plan that is already in place, if one will be in to help that facility. So Dr. Arton, there's a facility in the constituency which you will be the MP for. The Catchinall Stadium, about the last 6 years, it has not been able to use for any track and field activity. St. Western Champs, even Milo Western Relay have to be removed and relocated to GC Foster in St. Catherine. Western Champs was held in St. Catherine. Therefore, the schools who do not have that strength of money, they are greatly affected, and I'm asking, what will happen if we will have some improvement to our sporting facilities across the country so that even our lovely track and field that we're so successful in do not end up like cricket and football to some extent?
So we'll take the fourth and final question before we go to our answers.
Good night, comrade. Next Prime Minister. Rubbish talk me at you now. PNP na clean. Macaulay na clean. Crescent Road na clean. St. Joseph Road na clean. Carl Blake at the councillor. Near people bad up the choke them, they go take up Carl rubbish all the while. And also, Miss Pinnock and Sam and Mr. Mullins, they must sabotage the PNP zone. Next Prime Minister coming, why you step on it quickly as possible. Time come, use the next Prime Minister marching up Duke Street.
Well, thank you for that. If we, MSMEs, legal actions as it relates to them is strong. And then for Comrade Hinckley and Harton, sports and resource facilities. So if we could just recenter ourselves for the answers to those questions.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank the representative of the MSME community that came and has voiced their questions at this forum, and I'm grateful for your participation in this lively atmosphere. The MSME phenomenon is vital to economic development because it is a fact that much of the employment in the country is generated by small businesses, and it is also a means of social mobility in the country where persons who may have been historically disenfranchised, excluded, are able to pull themselves and their families out of poverty and into a much better quality of life for themselves. So from that perspective, the People's National Party sees the strategic importance of supporting MSMEs because we are big believers in social mobility, and which is very straightforward. I won't go into the details of how you access it, which is very straightforward. I won't go into the details of how you access as a way of thinking about this. So the answer is yes, we'll be looking at different modalities of distribution of funding, and it's critical that the DBJ focus on the outcomes of what they're trying to do and work back from that in terms of how they tailor their policies, rather than setting the policies and saying, well, it's not really working, but what can we do about it? And that is a different philosophy as to how we would approach this particular matter.
The other question was the legal of the instance.
Yes, the matter of which you spoke, we're working on that, Committee Hastings. I don't want to say anything yet because we haven't reached the point where we're ready to say anything, but we are working on it. As you can imagine, there's a lot going on at this time in terms of focusing on readiness for the elections, which we think are going to be close in time. So that's our #1 focus. But we are also paying attention to that issue. And of course, once we become government, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, Hickling.
Yes, sports. I'm going to let my colleague here, Comrade Hickling, speak to it, but I would just tell you this. From my standpoint as a chairman of one of the leading Premier League clubs in Jamaica, and possibly the biggest fan base, I do see the need for the state to get behind sports at the community level and to invest in, I would say in particular, infrastructure, the physical facilities, in the case of football, playing surfaces, so that we can have the standards improved, because there is tremendous potential in sports to grow GDP and to create avenues for people from communities which are underserved and who may not be academically inclined to become top earners in the country. I mean, I've seen it in my own situation where, you know, I saw a player like Ronaldo Cephas or Kaheem Dixon. These are guys in their young 20s, and they're earning now significantly to come. They're earning significantly more, and I know you have an interest in that. They're earning significantly more than degreed, you know, youngsters who have excelled academically and are in the job market for more conventional forms of career. So sports is part of it, and I'll let Debbie speak to it.
In his wisdom, party leader identified particular people with specialist information to shadow particular areas, to be spokespersons for particular areas for the purposes of the shadow cabinet, which means that Wavell Hines, Comrade Wavell Hines, is our spokesperson for sport. He has made a presentation to the shadow cabinet. That presentation speaks extensively to a development agenda for sport. At the moment, it sits as a part of a portfolio. When the election is won, the party leader will make a determination as to how the governance configuration.
A SAFE program. SAFE there is an acronym for sports, arts and artistry, financial literacy, and economics. We have a website, safejamaica.com, www.safejamaica.com. You can go and log on to that website and see all the wonderful work that we've been doing in Montego Bay. Having recognized that the sporting industry was on the decline, especially in inner city communities in Montego Bay. When I was growing up, a lot of the communities had their own teams. For example, I played for Mount Salem. I won the SDC under 15. We also won parishes. And when you look at Kingston and you count the amount of Chevron tracks that are here, the National Stadium, Stadium East, UWI, UTEC, Calabar, KC, JC, about 10. And there are none in Western Jamaica. And that is why we have offered ourselves to lead that community of remarkable people, because the leadership being afforded to them is nonchalant and out of touch and uncaring and don't understand what it takes to offer a diverse array of avenues for our people to, one, make their livelihoods, and to two, engage themselves. Even the Chilani, multifunctional stadium is a challenge as well. All these stadiums have been neglected by the Jamaica Labour Party. Sports has been neglected by the Jamaica Labour Party, and it will take a People's National Party government to reignite and pump back some fuel into the lives of our young people.
Thank you, Debbie and Andre. On the last point about solid waste, garbage disposal, two things I would say. First of all, we believe that that the local authorities must have a bigger role in the delivery of garbage collection services, and that the solid waste management authority should be a regulatory body primarily, and just in the same way the KCMC is doing such excellent work now under the leadership of our mayor. We want to see what they can do by empowering them and resourcing them and other local authorities to take on greater responsibility for keeping the localities, municipality areas clean. We also want to see that our workers in the solid waste industry are put on a proper footing, that their employment terms and conditions are in keeping with their rights as workers, and so that they are no longer vulnerable to being treated in particular ways based on maybe political affiliation or other concerns. We get the reports, we hear the things that are going on, so we want to stand up and make sure that our workers in the solid waste industry are well looked after. But we also want to make sure that we have a system of delivering the services in communities that are being delivered by those who are closest to the communities in terms of governance. That's why local government is so important. And things like solid waste lend themselves to being better managed by persons who are close to the people and who the people can hold accountable much more readily for their performance. So that is
we can do to make it a little bit easier, because indeed these are some very valuable institutions. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Patrick Smellins, and from West Rural St. Andrew, and I'm happy to know that Joan Gardner-Webley is so known and is actually considered a hard worker, and as some people shout out, the best. So she's came to the constituency and been working hard and convinced me to work with her. But my concern, and I want to direct it to the leader, the party leader, what are your plans in fixing our roads? Because we have seen the government over the years patching and fixing the road, and they will do it, fix this road in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 months, and there it goes again. So it must be a plan. I heard you recently saying that there will be a maintenance plan. And from I get back from the States, I've been saying the same thing. And I was so happy to hear you say that your party will be coming with a maintenance plan. And I think that is crucial for our roads today, because we can't continue with these type of roads that we're having. I think West Rural have seen some of the worst road condition right now. Deplorable. I would have resigned. I could have never preside as a MP or a councillor with the condition of these roads, especially in the school vicinities. It's disgrace. And so I would love to know if this party has a plan, to better manage and fixing these roads. One other thing quickly is our youths coming out of school, joining the corner with a spliff and a little cup. We need to see some changes starting from these young men coming out of high school. Almost no hope. I wonder when some of our ladies, we see them going to universities, seeking higher education, who are they going to be marrying to? Because these are just thugs coming up. Everybody just want a slip and want to join the corner. So I'm saying we must have a plan for these young people coming out of our schools, some training centers, and every MP should have a plan to begin to look at how we can help our young men especially. God bless you.
Well, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Again, I just want to mirror what everybody has said. We really have to congratulate our Prime Minister in waiting and his team. They have done a fantastic job with just engaging us, the ordinary Jamaican citizens, from Negril to Moran Point. Something that we thought was a thing of the past with this uncaring government. So it's encouraging for me, and I want to just ask Prime Minister that two areas of concern with. The lack of green spaces for create like parks and gated development cannot be approved if there's not that requisite green space for the families of those areas to interact in normalcy. Also another concern I have, which I'm hoping will be addressed, that travesty that had happened to those unfortunate people whose houses were almost at completion in Bernard Lodge. And through strange means, they were demolished, even though there was manifestation of them having ownership certificates from our previous Prime Minister, Portia Simpson Miller. So how can we legally prevent such a travesty from ever happening again? Because up to now, I'm sure a lot of Jamaicans are still not aware of whatever happened to those unfortunate people in terms of legal redress. And I'm hoping that it is not true. I've been hearing rumors of the ownership of all these people's homes being reverted to somebody who I won't mention. But I hope it's not so. Because if it was legal...
Driven by Jamaican policymakers, but by the Western countries that have this organization called the Financial Action Task Force that exerts pressure on countries like ours to reduce the risk of money laundering and terrorism financing, and have these lists, you've heard of them, blacklisting, grey listing, where countries that are not seen to have the necessary procedures and laws in place to reduce those risks are subject to pressure, where even their banking system can be cut off from the international financial community. So this is why some of these very onerous laws have been passed. Now, in my opinion, there needs to be a differentiation between smaller charities and the rules that should apply to them and the requirements imposed on them, as opposed to much larger organizations that have greater resources to devote to that type of compliance. In the same way that in our company law, you know, smaller companies can adopt systems of accounting and the production of financial statements which are less burdensome on them than larger companies have. You know, there should be a similar differentiation so that our smaller charities, which are, there are many, and you know, and I am associated with one to do with persons with disabilities and the Sir John Golding Rehab Center, you know, where I've, you know, been struggling like others to ensure compliance, and it's an ongoing battle. But, you know, I believe that there is room for advocating with the international bodies as to why there should be a differentiation between, just in the same way when it comes to know your customer requirements and financial inclusion, that smaller customers should be given less, there should be a more easily surmounted procedure for onboarding somebody into the banking system than say a bigger customer. And the rules applicable to those smaller customers should be much less onerous on them. So there is a need for that kind of nuanced approach so that we don't have, as it were, the baby being thrown out with the bathwater, as they say. The second thing was the youth.
And the road maintenance.
And road maintenance. Well, Jamaica spent decades focusing on building highways, and it has been important from a developmental point of view. P.J. Patterson was, you know, and Kingsley Thomas and Wayne Reed and them who worked on the Highway 2000 project, and Sister P, who was really in charge when with Dr. Davis, Omar Davis, as the transport minister, dealing with the North-South link and so on. And these are important projects, and a lot of capital was devoted to that. But what we have seen is a complete neglect of the major part of the road network, which is the roads that our people drive on every day. Scheme roads and the roads in community roads and the roads that go, connect communities to these major highways. And that is why the government has had to be scoring now with Reach and Spark, because they know that they're fully culpable for having neglected the road network, and the Jamaican motorists and users of the roads have been badly beaten and battered by the road conditions as a result of that neglect. And I'm sure that they will be held accountable when they come to the polls now for having allowed this situation to reach where it has reached, because their reach is not really dealing with the problem in a comprehensive way, because the problem is so large. What we need is a consistent approach towards the maintenance of roads, and prioritizing maintenance and the techniques that are used to repair roads and build new roads, so that we don't have shortcuts and we don't have corruption in the way that materials are being used and how the monitoring is done. So there's a greater level of accountability to ensure that people, the consumers and taxpayers of the country, get value for money for the expenditures on roads. And we intend to ensure that that is the case by putting the necessary checks and balances in place to ensure that that is so, and ensuring that there is an adequate provision consistently applied to road maintenance so that the road network can be upgraded over time. It will not happen overnight, because Jamaica has some of the, I think one of the densest levels of, well, in terms of miles of roads per square mile of territory, some of the densest in the world. We have a lot of roads, so it's going to take some time to deal with it, but it needs to be a policy priority. And I think that road maintenance and making sure the roads on which people drive on a daily basis are in a proper condition, a decent condition, is now the priority over major highway projects. That's my own view.
Lots of green spaces and the incorporation of them in the town planning.
And the issue about, well, youth and the need for providing avenues for the youth who are on the corner digging out them hand middle with the cup of, special, Yes, that is why Unite for Change was designed. That's what we're talking about, a holistic approach to dealing with these issues. And as Debbie is saying, the cultural and creative industries and sports are avenues by which our youth can be channeled into productive activities that can generate good livings for themselves through lawful activities, as opposed to being attracted into gang violence and those things. So we are very much in favor of community activity, using the community leadership and the SDC, revamping and revitalizing the SDC to lead the charge. We need an army of social workers through our Ministry of Social Transformation to support this effort. And so we definitely see this as a differentiating factor between ourselves and the Jamaica Labour Party, which have really abandoned the youth of this country in terms of dealing with the issue of which you spoke. And what again?
Lots of green spaces and the incorporation of it.
Yeah, well, the question about planning approvals and gated communities and ensuring green spaces is vital. In an increasingly high-paced world where so much of our time is spent looking at a screen and so on, we need to have spaces where people can retreat to nature and be outdoors and have the benefit of tranquility to hold a meds and to get their exercise and to socialize. As opposed to doing everything digitally and through the internet. So I'm fully on board with that, the imperative of ensuring that in our planning decisions, we take that very much into account.
Thank you. Thank you. Please give our panelists a round of applause for those answers. So that concludes the people session. So, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, comrade-minded, civil groups, tonight was more than a forum, it was a statement. that the People's National Party is listening, that we are learning, and that we're leading with purpose. What's on the ballot is not just politics, it's the future of Jamaica. And that demands leadership that is bold, inclusive, and grounded in the people. To everyone that asked a question, share a thought, or simply tuned in, thank you. And I now invite the President of the People's National Party's Women's Movement, Patricia Duncan Sutherland, and the parliamentary candidate for St. Andrew Eastern to bring the vote of thanks.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Yes, man, you still have a little bit of energy left because we should be energized after this. Yes. No, I couldn't come up here without taking a little jab. You know, I know that Philip said that he wanted to debate Daryl, yes, on energy. And I am inviting Favour because she could not make it to the other debate to come. I am ready to debate you, Favour. Yes. You know, as a politician, I couldn't come up here without saying that, right? Yes. But I'm here to give the vote of thanks. And I want to acknowledge our awesome secretariat led by our DGS Dexroy Martin and the regional chair Dennis Gordon and the regional secretary Carl Kirkland and their team for organizing today's event. You know? And I want to acknowledge our communications team that's been working very hard and tonight anchored by Chelan. Give her a round of applause. And of course, BOJTV, that is everywhere we are. Big up Kern. Yes. And the Knutsford Court, the Knutsford Hotel, Court Hotel, yes. And what? What the name? Summit Hotel. The changed the Summit. Yes, the Summit Hotel. Yes. And your team, thank you very much for creating the space for us and having us here. And I want to acknowledge Waynet for guiding us through tonight. And for reminding us that a participatory democracy is one led by the people. And where your voice must be at the center. And so today I want to thank you, the audience, for making sure that your voice was at the center and for choosing to put it there. Because if you didn't participate, we could not have had this forum. And of course, I want to thank our party leader, the next Prime Minister, for setting the overarching framework for government that puts good ethics at the center, for reminding us that we are championing change as a team with the Porsche initiative in housing, the ease in education, and a productive healthcare system. And you know, while we were going through the process, I want to thank Dr. Andre Horton for reminding us that we are the party that engages young people, that puts young people in positions of leadership, and that we are going to lead us through a process of intensive growth. We are learning things in Andre. Are you hearing me? Intensive growth with technology as a driver. But it's not just there, because I want to acknowledge Debbie and thank her, because she's reminding us that we are going to create value from what we feel and who we are, right? The cultural and creative industry. Making communities come alive again and creating a vibe. May I look forward to it. Yes, Augusttown, Mr. Rutherford, get up. Yes. 1 Augusttown. Yes. And you know, as she spoke about it, she brought the technology into it a little bit, right? Called communications, have the 5G technology, and she'll bring the cultural 5G technology. And I want to acknowledge her for that. We're not going to forget the 5G. And then, of course, we have to thank Philip, right? Power for the people. But we're doing the power for the people in a protected environment, preparing for the challenges that we know going to come with climate change. Because we know that we are ready. You know, and Andre said that thing himself, we believe in you. And Debbie says, we are going to tell our stories. And I want you to remember tonight, when you leave here, the People's National Party believes in you. The People's National Party intends to help you tell your story. And not just tell your story, but create your story. One that is going to cause you to have prosperity. Yes, prosperity, but real prosperity. Because we are going to be able to create wealth and not jobs. And so, I want you to remember as we leave here tonight, and we thank our presenters tonight, that your time has come. And we want to thank you, party leader, for putting together an exemplary team and being the exemplary leader, a man of integrity and high moral standards. Impeccable. That gives us the confidence and the belief that would allow us to leave here with the knowledge that the next PNP government will ensure that people time come. Thank you all.
No, I think thanks were well said. I'm asking everyone to stand as we close out for the recital of the National Pledge of Jamaica. All right, so we can go after, let me say 3. I don't think I want to say 2. So 1, 2, 3. I pledge before God and all mankind, I pledge the love and loyalty of my heart, the wisdom and courage of my mind, the strength and vigor of my body, in the service of my fellow citizens. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that Jamaica may, under God, increasing beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in the advancing of the welfare of the whole human race. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening.